What's up YouTube, Maggie Tutorials here. Today I'm going to show you how to set up CGMiner to start mining Litecoins, or actually any cryptocurrency besides Bitcoin, such as Dogecoins, which are actually probably going to be a little bit profitable, especially since the difficulty is down compared to Litecoins. Whatever you're going to do, the first thing that you need to do is make sure that you have an AMD card. NVIDIA cards are worthless. They will use up way too much energy, produce way too much heat, not profitable at all. And then the second thing you need to do is, if you know you have an AMD card, you need to go to this link in the description, the mining hardware comparison. Find your GPU. In my case, it is the 7770. And figure out what your kilohashes a second are going to be. A hash is the amount of information a computer can produce. It's a little bit hard to explain, but basically a kilohash a second is the amount of information that you can mine to then produce Litecoins. And in my case, my low-end graphics card can produce 143 kilohashes a second. So if yours is, over 150 or maybe 120, and especially if you're not going to be like paying for electricity or overclocking, or you're in a very hot area, then you'll probably have some profitability. If you have something like a 290X, then you're probably going to have something like over 600 kilohashes a second. Basically, the higher the better. 700 is a pretty good range. As you can see, the 7990 is 1,300, which is very high. So just look on here and figure out what approximate kilohashes you're going to get. This is not exact. This isn't for every single card, but just figure it out. The next thing you're going to need is the Litecoin wallet. Basically, this is your bank account. You're going to need a pool, which is kind of like where you work. So let's say you have worked for your job. You have obviously been doing paperwork or whatever you're doing, and the company now owes you money, whatever, for 30 days that you have worked. They have your money, which is your pool. The job has your money, and then at the end of the 30 days, it will be transferred to your bank account, or you'll be given a check which you can put in your bank. And the Litecoin wallet is kind of like your bank, so now you can do whatever you want with that money. Yes, you had that money, but you couldn't do anything you wanted with that money. So you will need to download this wallet for Windows, Mac, or Linux, or you can get the source code on GitHub. The next thing you're going to need is the miner itself. This uses your graphics card to do mathematical operations, and you can use a few other programs like GUIMiner, which has a nice GUI interface, but it doesn't work this very well, and this is actually really easy to figure out once you kind of know what you're doing. So go to the link in the description for CGMiner download, scroll down to 3.7, click on it, and I would recommend 3.7.2 windows.zip. Now, there is another link down below. When you download this, or when you extract the zip, there will probably be a notification for your antivirus saying that it's quarantined, or it's been virus detected. And here's an article that you can read. Basically, people that have made Trojans will put this in there so that they can get people to mine for them, thus using up their computer, kind of like a zombie computer. And so antiviruses are detecting this as a virus, but CGMiner itself, if you download it from this website, it is not a virus. The final thing you're going to need is a pool. This is where you work. You can mine by yourself, but that's not as profitable, and this can really help. As you can see all the statistics, you can usually chat, get some help, figure out the difficulty, all sorts of things. It won't look like this, mostly because I'm already logged in, but just make an account. They got some help right here. Sign up, use your email. You're going to have to put in a PIN. You want to write all your stuff down, write your username, your password, and your PIN down. You're going to need all of those all the time. After you have logged in, then you need to go over to, usually on the left side, depending on what their website looks like, and click My Workers. Now right here, you need to type in a username and a password for your worker. So in my case, I put in MGT and MGT1. These passwords don't matter. If anyone knows this, you can't do anything with it. You can't get their Litecoins or anything. This is what's going to go into your CGMiner, so that CGMiner knows that when it has done some mathematical operations, to send it to your pool or your workplace, so that it can then convert those into Litecoins, which will then go into your wallet. You can make as many workers as you need if you have separate computers. I would recommend them being short like this so that you can easily edit them or change them for whatever reason. You can also choose to monitor them. You can see their kilohashes and their difficulty right here, or delete them. You can see if they're active. This all depends on the website, but most pools look like this. They're just using some sort of default theme. After that, most likely go over to get started, and right here this is where you configure your miner. You need to know the stratum. This is basically the IP to send it to the pool. You also need the port, and then your username and worker username and worker password, the ones that we just made right before this. So keep this up, go into your CGMiner that you extracted. It's probably in 2 folders down, and you should see quite a few files. Don't click the .exe. You can, but every time you do it, you'll have to enter in your details. And what you want to do is open up Notepad. And now I have already made my script. This is basically what tells my GPU what to do and where to send the information. And right here, pretty much no matter what you have, you're going to want to put in set x GPU max allocation percent and objects 1. So just put that right there. And then this is where it will kind of depend on what your pool is. So let's paste this in and I'll discuss each thing. Up to about here is okay, but right past here is where you're going to need to change some stuff. So if you drag Notepad to the side and you look at your pool, as you can see, these are not the same stratums. So I need to change that. So just copy and paste, go back into the Notepad and replace whatever might be wrong. And right here, this is the username, and this is not correct because I have a different username on this pool. So I need to do mg tutorials and then a period and then the worker name that we just looked at, so .mgt. This is the password. It was mgt1. And right here, this is the intensity. Basically, it's how much it's going to use your GPU. Well, since we allocated 100%, it's going to use the max amount of GPU as possible. But sometimes if you bump this up, you can get a little bit more kilohashes out of it. But it does make your computer slower the higher you go. If you put it on like 5, you might get 20 hashes or something. But if I put it on 12, I get just about 140. I'm not overclocking, but this is the gigahertz edition of the 7770. Now right here, this is, I'm not exactly sure what this is, but sometimes if you're having issues, just change that to 2. If you put it on 2 and you're having issues, change it to 1. So it's kind of has to do with your GPU. Not exactly sure how to explain it. Just leave -W at 256. If you're having really bad issues, go find some chat and see if they can help you, because they probably know a lot more than me about this stuff. The thread concurrency, this just has to do with your GPU. In my case, it was 8,000, but what I actually find to be very helpful is to delete this last part, or well, cut it. You should probably save in your clipboard, and just leave it, and I'll show you what to do in a second. Now what you want to do is just save as, go to where you put your CGMiner. Right here, you need to drop down save as, type and choose all files, and then type in startminer.bat. Make sure the S and M are capital. Then click save, and now when you go into the folder, you should see a startminer.bat. Now this is associated to the .exe. Basically, every time you launch the bat file, it will read over to the CGMiner so that you don't have to enter in your information every time, and you can experiment around with it and change it really easily. So let's just double click it. It should open up a CMD prompt, and just wait a little bit. It has to kind of set up. Sometimes if it doesn't work, just quit it and turn it back on again. It looks like it's going to work. Yep, okay. So this is what it should kind of look like. It's going to load up your hashes right here. Up at the top, it shows when it started. The 5-second is basically, it's just kind of reading what your GPU is doing for the past 5 seconds. The average is what you really want to look at. And I don't know exactly what a lot of these are, and a lot of it doesn't matter. But one of the main things that you do need to look for is HW. This is hardware errors. It should be 0. If it's not 0, you need to do something. Now here you can see the connected to. As you can see, it's the same as down here, ltc.drillbit.me. The difficulty is 15. This has to do with your actual user, not the difficulty of whatever cryptocurrency you are mining. Obviously it says the correct username and worker username. Here's the difficulty of the actual cryptocurrency itself, which is 3.93K right now. And you can see when the block started and the best share. And right here you can press P on your keyboard to change the pool management, so your worker username and stuff like that. GPU management, you can change settings, display options, and quit. Don't press the X button when you want to end this, just press Q, because otherwise it doesn't really like that, kind of locks up. GPU 0, this is if you have more than one GPU. I don't, but some people have 10, and this will have your temperatures, your fan speed. That has to do with specific cards. Since I don't have another, I can't really tell you. And right here is the intensity. It should be 12, like I put it in right there, it should be 12. Right here, this is just your information. As you can see, it probed for a live pool, it found a pool, it got the difficulty, it accepted the work, and as you can see, GPU 0, that is my only GPU. It will then detect a new block. If the pool is down or your internet's down, it'll start rejecting work, or it'll try probing for an alive pool. It will not auto quit. So if you're leaving this on during the night like you normally would, it could just be running and using up resources and not actually doing anything. So make sure you have a active internet connection that does not drop out, and make sure you find a reliable pool. Sometimes even if the website itself goes down for the pool, you can still mine because they have backup services. So that's pretty cool. Alright, now I can just press Q. It should say shutdown signal received and quit. Now if I go back into my Explorer, as you can see, there's a .bin file right here. And you don't really need to worry too much about this, but right here is 6016, and that is what you should probably put in for your thread concurrency. Now for some reason, every time I do this without thread concurrency, I get 6016, but I found out that if I put in 8000, I get like 20 more kilohashes without having to turn the intensity up to I think 15 or something, which made my computer extremely slow. So you kind of just have to experiment around. It's not going to break your graphics card unless you're overclocking. This -T, it just kind of runs CGMiner in a more informative format, so you can see any sort of errors that are going on. So that's nice if you're having problems, but that's usually not necessary. So you can just leave this here and just save it, run it, see if it's going, and if it's not, just start changing this stuff. Usually you can find some help online. If you open up your miner and it looks like it's going all fine, and your computer has now not really liked your GPU because it's blasting at 100%, and everything seems to be running fine, except for the fact that now you can see my kilohashes is like 100 times less, or 100 less than it was just before. This is sometimes a problem just with CGMiner, so sometimes you can just quit it and restart it. But what I found to be very often the problem is the drivers for the graphics card. I will, let's say, mine, and then I want to play a game, which you shouldn't do the same thing at once because your game will get maybe 5 FPS. So I quit it, I go play the game, and then I turn this back on, and it'll be at about 53 kilohashes. What I found out I have to do is either restart my computer or go into Device Manager and go to Display Drivers, right click, Disable, and Re-enable. It's kind of a pain, and this is why it's nice to have a dedicated computer for doing this, but since I don't, I kind of have to do this every once in a while. It's just whatever your choice if you want to restart or not. Alright, now to the final part of actually getting your Litecoins, or whatever currency you are running. You need to open up your wallet that you downloaded. It should open up like this or something similar, and it's going to have to download the blocks that you haven't had before. Sometimes they allow a torrent. In Bitcoin's case, it's like 9 gigabytes of blocks, but Litecoin isn't that bad, and a lot of the smaller currencies aren't that bad. Right here, this is what your wallet should look like, except for the fact that you shouldn't have a balance or recent transactions. Your send, this is where you can send Litecoins to people if you're gonna, get a payment, get it converted into US dollars. Receive, this is where your addresses are. You can make as many addresses as you want, and you can label them differently. Your transactions is where you've done stuff. Your addresses, if you are constantly sending someone money, you can do that. What you probably want to do is if you're on multiple pools, because you can make a backup pool in your file that I was just editing. So in my case, I have Drillbit and Hashfaster. This is Drillbit, and what you want to do is go into Edit Account, and right here, your payment address, you want to copy whatever your address is and put it right here in your payment address. Otherwise, you won't be able to get paid. You can usually change your automatic payout threshold, so once you hit that amount of Litecoins that are in your pool account, it will automatically pay out to Litecoin, and you should have some unconfirmed or in your balance. It'll also show the transaction on the right. And this is where your PIN comes in handy. You need to edit your PIN every time you update your account. You can choose a donation percentage. Usually all this has to do with the specific pool, but I find that a lot of pools pretty much look the same. So that's about it of how to set up CGMiner for mining cryptocurrencies. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up. I have donations for Litecoins in the description below, and if you want more videos, subscribe.